Hi there guys, welcome to another episode of the Cover Zero Show with me, your host, Simon Conboy. Continuing on with the franchise and draft review series today, this episode will be focusing on the Oakland Raiders. Now for those of you who haven't seen one of these episodes before, what I'm doing is I'm taking the last 10 years worth of overall records, just giving you some stats about that, giving you the 10-year overall, going through any coaching changes that have occurred in that time, and then grading the last 10 years worth of drafts. I'll hop into more detail once I get to that section of the video. Friday's episode will be essential for, I think, getting the most out of these episodes. I'll be bringing all those stats together, try and find some correlations between draft success and team success. There will hopefully be some really interesting information and data in that. I mean, I believe there is, having compiled it all. Really hope you guys check that one out and enjoy that also. So the Raiders, been an interesting 10 years. Last year, really the first signs of the resurgence finally taking place. It's been a while. It's good to have you back, Raiders. So 2007, 2008, it had Lane Kiffin. That was a disaster. Then Tom Cable from 2009 to 2010. Hugh Jackson in 2011. Dennis Allen in 2012, 2014. And at the minute, they have Jack Del Rio, who's been coaching from 2015 onward. Over this time frame, most of you will not be surprised to see the record is poor. 60 wins, 120 losses. At least it's a nice round number. Flat out 0.33 there. One playoff appearance, that being last season. So, moving on to the drafts. Let's see what's changed here. So, what I'm doing. First 3 rounds going through. Each pick made in those rounds. That's where you're expecting to get starters, contributors towards the team. Giving them a grade, either a solid, if it's a pick that the team would be happy to make again, or the pick worked out, good value. If they were mediocre, fine, then I'm not grading it. No effect on the overall score. And if they were a bust, it'll be a -1 to the team's score. Players picked in rounds 4 through 7, any that had an impact in the league, they will be highlighted as value picks. They will add +1 to the team's overall score. Most of these players never make any impact in the league, so it would have really skewed the data and been a bit too much pointless information for me to give you guys had I included all of them. So 2007, as I say, Friday episode, going to be a lot of info in there. One of the things I am going to do is a favourite and least favourite 10 draft classes over this time frame. This 2007 draft is definitely a contender to be among the worst or least favourite. So, first overall selection, and remember how good this draft class was. Jamarcus Russell. Now, to some degree, I remember at that time, it seemed like a bit of a no-brainer. He looked great coming out of college. However, it didn't turn out to be the case. He was an absolute bust, an all-time draft bust, really. In the second, Zach Miller, the tight end, he's gone on to have a solid career. Pretty good pickup in the second. In the third, Quinton Moses, defensive end linebacker sort of player, did nothing with his career. He was a bust. In the third, Mario Henderson, defensive tackle. He was also a bust. In the third, Johnny Lee Higgins, the wide receiver. He was also a bust, just not enough production there. In the fourth, Michael Bush, the running back, he was a pretty reasonable player. Had pretty good value in the fourth, so they get a value pick there. Moving on to 2008, we've got Darren McFadden selected with the 4th overall pick. Running back, considering where he was drafted, a bust, just didn't have a particularly great career in Oakland, now a backup with the Cowboys. In the 4th that year, Tyvon Branch, the safety, fantastic value pick. He's been a pretty good player for most of his time in the league. Moving on to 2009. Darius Hayward-Bay with the 7th overall pick. Possibly the most Al Davis pick on this list. Yeah, that didn't work out. He was a bust. In the second, Mike Mitchell, the safety. This was another very Al Davis pick. But he's gone on to have a pretty reasonable career, although not really with Oakland. I'm not going to grade that one. It would be a solid had you done anything for them and he hadn't been seen as such a reach. Yeah, no grade attached there. In the third, Matt Shaughnessy, the defensive end, he was a bust. And then I'm combining these we got 2 value picks. In the 4th, Louis Murphy, the wide receiver. Bounced around the league a bit, but not a bad player. Pretty good for a 4th round pick. And in the 6th, Brandon Myers, the tight end. Similar sort of story there. Were they 2nd or 3rds? Probably wouldn't qualify, but in those rounds to get players of that caliber is a pretty good job. Moving on to the 2010 draft. Rolando McClain, the linebacker. They just couldn't get it right back then, could they? Yeah, he was a bust. Absolute disaster for them, even if he had a couple of good years with the Cowboys before off-field issues have arisen again. In the 2nd, Lamar Houston, the defensive lineman, solid player. It was a good selection. He's had a pretty good career. In the 3rd, Jared Valdir, the offensive tackle, now with the Cardinals. He's a really, really good player. They nailed that pick. It's fantastic for a 3rd round to get a lineman of that caliber. Moving on to 2011, Stefan Wisniewski, the centre. I'll go with solid. I think he's been an okay player. Not bad for a 2nd rounder. If he could just go with mediocre there for sure. In the 3rd, DeMarcus Van Dyke, defensive back. He's been a bust. And in the 3rd, Joe Barksdale, the offensive tackle. He's not particularly good tackle, but he's been okay in his career, bounced around a little bit. I'm not going to give them a bust or a solid for that one. Moving on to 2013, DJ Hayden with a 12th overall pick. He's been a bust, no longer with the Raiders. Especially with the 12th pick, definitely, yeah. And also in 2nd, Menelik Watson, the offensive lineman. He has been a bust. In the 3rd, C.O. Moore, linebacker. No grade attached there. Okay player for a player selected where he was. In the 6th that year, though, Latavius Murray and Michael Rivera, both going down as value picks, even though both have signed elsewhere this off-season. But both very good selections at that stage in the draft. Moving on to the 2014 draft. Now this, to me, is where this franchise has, really managed to get itself back on track. This is a contender for that best list or favourite list at the end of the week. 1st round selection, Khalil Mack. I believe he was the 5th overall pick. Yeah, they nailed that one. That's a home run. Great player. And this reigning defensive MVP, of course. In the 2nd round, Derek Carr. Was superb last year before the injury. Had a pretty good rookie year as well. It looks like things are on the up for him as a player. Home run there. And in the 3rd, Gabe Jackson. He's a perfectly reasonable offensive lineman. Good pick in the 3rd. All solid there. Good job, Raiders. 2015, 1st round, Amari Cooper, number 6 overall. Is he? No, number 4. Number 4. I wrote that wrong. I'm sure he was 4. Either way, yeah, he looks like a keeper at this point. Been very effective for them. Hope to see things improve for him and continue to get better. But yeah, I feel strongly enough to give that solid with these last 2 or 3 drafts. Sitting on the fence a lot more. Of course, some of these players haven't played enough to make a definitive decision as to whether they're busts or not. But if I feel strongly, I will grade a player. In the 2nd, Mario Edwards, defensive end. This one could edge into solids, but I'm not grading it at the minute. And Clive Wolford, the tight end, in the 3rd. Got nothing there. Last year, Kyle Joseph, the safety, with the 14th pick. Need to see him do a bit more in coverage. I thought it was solid, definitely solid. I'm not willing to grade him yet, but promising signs there, I thought, last season. Jihad Ward, another safety, in the 2nd. Similar story there. And Shaheik Calhoun in the 3rd. Again, not willing to attach a grade there. So in total with the Raiders, things were disastrous for so long. These last few drafts, they seem to have picked it up. It's shown in terms of the improvement in the record for sure. That 2014 draft, of course, being absolutely key to this Oakland Raiders franchise. 8 solid picks in this time frame, 6 value. Now the 6 value is a pretty good score. Only getting 8 solid players in pick rounds 1 through 3 is very, very poor, with 12 busts in total, giving them a total score of +2. Definitely on the lower end. Makes it easy to see why this franchise was, kept down for so long. I say kept down, they really kept themselves down through poor drafting. In the 1st round, they've had 8 selections in that time frame. 3 of them have been solid, and they've all been recent picks. Everything before that, up until Khalil Mack. Is that only 2 solid? Yeah, nothing but busts up until 2014. That's incredible in and of itself. But things seem to be picking up. What do you guys think? Do you think I've been too harsh on the Raiders? Perhaps too kind on the recent drafts? You disagree with anything? Let me know in the comments below. The Cover Zero Facebook page, or you can find me on Twitter. I'll do my best to respond to absolutely everybody who gets in touch. If you've enjoyed this episode, please check out some more. Definitely recommend checking out tomorrow's episode. As I say, it will really build on this data, give you a lot more context. And yeah, as always, it's been an absolute pleasure. If you enjoyed it, like, share, subscribe, check out the Patreon. All that's thoroughly appreciated. Hope you've enjoyed the show. It's been a pleasure as always, and go Bucks.